Hi, I'm Matt Needham, and this is my lecture on chimneys and vents. Before we get going, let me just read the definition from the code about what a chimney is. It says one or more passageways, vertical or nearly so, for conveying flue or vent gases to the outdoors. I've often thought, what's the difference between a chimney and a vent? If you really think about that definition, it's the chimney is the bigger term, and then vents are considered a type of chimney. And generally for this chapter that we're going to go over on vents, it's more about gas appliances being vented out, generally with a metal type of pipe. I was also thinking about these chimneys and vents, and recently I told some of my students that my favorite air conditioning system in the world is the Bellagio Hotel, where the big water fountain that shoots up water and evaporates water, that's actually the cooling tower for in a sense, the water pond for the Bellagio Hotel. And it's that water shooting up and sitting in that big pond evaporating that gets rid of the heat, and then it sucks that water back through the water-cooled condensers for the chiller. And I think that's great. And then with some time on my hands, I thought, what's my favorite refrigeration system in the world? And that's probably the Svalbard Global Seed Bank in Longyearbyen, Norway. And that's at the top of the world, and the idea is that all the seeds from around the world, and there's almost 5 billion seeds there, of every plant that you can think of, is stored there. And at the top of the world, and then if there's some global catastrophe that people could find their way there and start again. And it's not just for global catastrophe. Actually, there was a withdrawal made in the Middle East. Syria, got bombed out. Their seed bank got bombed out, and they lost the crops, and they had to go and get some of the original seeds. And so we have that. I think that's really neat. And they have a refrigeration system that even if it fails, because it's near the North Pole, that those seeds should stay viable for hundreds of years. But just to make sure they're more hard frozen, we also have a refrigeration system there, which leads me to what's probably the most famous chimney on the planet. Is there an interesting chimney to talk about? And that would have to be certainly the chimney for the Sistine Chapel. The chimney for the Sistine Chapel in Vatican. Usually when a pope dies, or last time resigned, but dies, all the cardinals from around the world come, and they get together and they lock themselves in. They no phones, no cameras, nothing. It's just guys with papers, and they lock themselves in, and they talk and figure it out, and they vote with little pieces of paper, and then they throw their votes into, when they're done, and they burn them in this little fireplace, and up goes the smoke. And if the smoke comes out white, there's a new pope. If it comes out black, they didn't come to a consensus, there wasn't a majority or whatever, there is no new pope. The way they communicate is these smoke signals through the Sistine Chapel vent. It's brown, it's made of metal pipe, and it has a big decorative cap on it. So that's probably the most famous chimney in the world. Anyways, just some interesting points. I try and emotionalize the trade, make it a little more exciting. Okay, let's get on with chimneys and vents. We're generally talking here about natural gas appliances in this chapter, but this chapter applies to burning oil. A medium temperature appliance is something that uses natural gas. A high temperature appliance is something that uses fuel oil, which we don't have on the West Coast generally, or specifically not in California. More popular in the north and the northeast, and we're not going to deal too much with that. Natural gas burning at 1400 degrees, oil 1800 degrees. That's why it's called medium heat if you're reading the chapter. Okay, things that don't have to be vented or are excluded, exceptions, are listed ranges, domestic cooking units, stoves, and hot plates. And so usually for residences, even if you think about stoves and ovens and things like that, they have a flame on them, but we don't actually have a vent or chimney pipe that has to take out those products of combustion. You may have a hood or something over it, but you may not. Because it's manually operated and it's a temporary thing. And so the products of combustion a lot of times get into the kitchen. And a lot of times I recommend, if you have the oven on a long time, for hours and hours, it's good to have a window open, because you could get little bits of carbon monoxide built up in your kitchen. Okay, now let's go on. The job of the chimney or the vent pipe is to convey all the products of combustion outside. We're always trying to take all this stuff outside, and we don't want to damage the equipment. Again, one of the main byproducts we'll talk about is water vapor. And the byproducts of combustion being water vapor, actually that water is pretty acidic. And if it goes from a vapor and drips down in a liquid state, it tends to rust or corrode out those metal pipes. So we don't want that. We don't want acidic water dripping on anything. And we don't want the metal pipes or anything to get too hot, right? We want those products to move and get out. We don't want them to overheat anything or increase our chance of fire. And for natural draft venting, which means no combustion blower, no power venter, just allowing the hot products of combustion naturally rise up, we want it to be able to prime, or as this heats up, it's going to move faster and faster over the first couple of minutes until you have a nice steady flow of vent gases going up the vent or chimney pipe. And then here it does mention high efficiency combustion appliances, where again this is over 90% or more efficient. If you put in 100,000 BTUs of natural gas energy, you're getting out at least 90,000 BTUs. How do we do that? We run it through an extra heat exchanger, and we condense that extra heat. I mean, we don't condense the heat, we make use of that extra heat, and some of that water vapor, we do let it condense, and then we have to have a condensate pipe taking it outside, okay? So that would be a high efficiency unit, which again is the law now in California, has to be installed as of last year, 2019. Now, we have to make sure there's no blockage in our vent or chimney pipes, okay? No bird's nest, no blockage whatsoever, so that it can go up. Now, for forced vent or power venters that have a little blower to push the thing up, if you're not blowing it up, they have a little pressure switch that senses that you're not creating that negative air pressure below it, and it will safety trip off your furnace or whatever it's operating. But for natural venting, we don't necessarily have that pressure switch, so we have to really make sure. And a test you can run is you can light a match and see, is the flame going this way, or blow out the match, and after the thing has run for a minute or so, you should give it a minute before you test it. Turn it on, put the burners on high or whatever, and let your natural draft appliance, which means no power venter, no combustion blower, just naturally allowing, which isn't so common with furnaces anymore. And then the smoke or whatever should get sucked up. If it's being blown back out here off the draft hood, that means you have a blockage up above. So that's a test for natural draft venting, okay? It even says here, maybe you could allow it to go up to 5 minutes, maybe in a cold area, to see if you have that natural draft. Also, know this, that whenever you see a yellowish, orangish flame, you don't have complete combustion. You don't have a good flame, okay? When you know that you turn your stove on in your kitchen, it's a nice blue flame. That's pretty good complete combustion. And if you start seeing orange or yellow, like a campfire situation, that's not complete combustion. Then you can actually get smoke and carbon monoxide, or more carbon monoxide, quite a bit actually. So that's a sign of bad combustion when it comes to any of these natural gas type appliances, is a yellow or wavering flame. Okay, let's move on. Now, if you have a vent, sometimes, not too common, it's possible to have two heating appliances next to each other, both feeding into a common chimney, okay, or vent pipe. But you're not allowed to have a natural draft one with a forced convection one, where This one has a power venter or blower, and it's in the same one as a hot water heater, okay? Because then as this one fan runs, this can blow the products of combustion down and out here. We don't want that, all right? So you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to mix and match, okay? And again, you can't take a vent or a chimney pipe and run it through a regular duct and say, well, I've got to get up and out, and let me cut a hole in this duct and just run a pipe right through it and then seal it up. You can't do that, because if there's a leak or something, then you're getting the products of combustion into the breathing zone, okay? Let's move on. There's an appliance vent category where they call out what is the different appliances. Now, appliance category number 1 is what we're talking about here. A non-positive or negative air pressure with no combustion blower, like this traditional hot water heater. And probably by far the least common would be appliance number 2, where they are having that extra heat exchanger. You do have condensate, but you don't have a combustion blower or power venter to vent it out, and it is operating at a negative pressure. You're probably not going to find that, okay? And then more like the traditional 83% furnaces is your appliance number 3, where it is operating at a positive pressure, and the vent has to be gas tight, meaning that the smoke and products of combustion won't come out in a vaporous form, and that's your normal efficiency. And then a category 4 appliance is that newer, although it's been around a while, but it's gotten more and more efficient, is that category 4, that high efficiency condensing furnace that uses a combustion or power venter, and that vent pipe actually has to almost be like liquid tight, where you could fill it with water and it wouldn't drip or leak. It's super tight. And again, with those type, you actually also have to bring in all the combustion air, and usually in concern about condensation, these are going to be PVC pipes that you bring in, or plastic pipes that you bring in for the combustion air, and then the vent pipe, because it's not that hot, also is plastic, and then you have a plastic PVC condensate drain to get rid of the water vapor that condenses. And then when you touch that plastic pipe or feel the products of combustion coming out the top of your vent pipe, it's not really that hot. It's warmish, unlike a traditional furnace, because we are making use of that extra heat. One of the reasons why a hot water heater or traditional furnace is inefficient is you lose a lot of heat you paid for up the vent or chimney pipe, which isn't really the case with these high efficiency category 4 appliances. Okay, let's move on here. Now, a chimney for a residential type or low heat, let me just double check something to make sure I didn't skip before we move on, let me go over this. I glossed over this. Is this concept of what you put in is what you get out, okay? So when we go to have combustion with natural gas, here it's showing you have 100 cubic feet of natural gas, okay, mixed in with 1,000 cubic feet of air, and that makes the blue fire, okay? And air is about 80% nitrogen, 20% oxygen, okay? So the 20% oxygen would be 200 cubic feet, and when you take 100 feet of natural gas with 200 cubic feet of oxygen, you get a nice complete combustion blue fire. We also have 250 feet of excess air that isn't burned. It's just passing along, helping everything move along, pushing it along, okay? And the total here is 100 plus 1,000 plus 250. The total amount of cubic feet going in here is 1,350, okay? And we make the fire. We don't lose anything. And then what we get going out the chimney pipe would be 800 cubic feet of nitrogen. It converts it, right? Remember, here's the 800 feet is in here. The carbon dioxide, 100 feet of that. We have oxygen over here, and in the natural gas we do have hydrogen. So we're getting the 200 cubic feet of water vapor, right, which generally goes out the chimney pipe, but in the case of an appliance category number 4, we'd have a lot of that going out the condensate pipe now. And then you get to the 250 feet of excess air, which just basically passes right through just to help things move along, lower the humidity, and get it out here. And you end up with 1350. 1350 in with fire and 1350 out. Okay, so just explaining combustion a little bit more, breaking down the numbers. There's a nice chart like this. I drew it a little different for this lecture. I drew it 3 or 4 different ways, and I like this one the best before I made this. Okay. Now, let's move on to the next point is if you have a chimney for residential type or low heat appliance, it shall extend not less than 3 feet above the highest point where it passes through a roof of a building and not less than 2 feet higher than a portion of a building within a horizontal distance of 10 feet. What does that mean? Okay, so first of all, let's have a building here, and this is a little bit not as steep of an angle, and you have to be 3 feet up off the roof where the products of combustion can get out. And you can't, because you don't want to have like leaves and debris piling up here, possibly getting a spark or causing a fire, or piling up so much that it can block the top of the chimney. So this has to be 3 feet above the top of the roof, right? But when you have a real steep roof like this, you have to, within 10 feet here, you have to be 2 feet above it. So you see that this is a lot higher than 3 feet above this point, but it's 2 feet, it's 2 feet above the top of the roof here, so that you have all this space not to pile up things. So that's kind of what we mean, just the concept, again, that you'd be able to pile up more leaves and debris right here in this angle than you could in this angle. So this chimney has to be a higher chimney, is just the basic point here. All right? All right. Let's move on. Fasteners, we generally cannot have, it says here, screws, rivets, and other fasteners shall not penetrate the inner wall of a double wall gas vent, okay, except at a transition from an appliance draft hood outlet, okay, flue collar or single wall metal collar to a double wall vent. We generally have these type B double wall vent connectors where it's a metal pipe inside a metal pipe. The inner metal pipe has the products of combustion, okay, that flow out. The outer pipe is there for you to make your connections and things like that. And then because you have a pipe within a pipe, you have a tiny air gap in there, which especially for your, you know, your natural gas venting for not high efficiency plastic pipes, but the metal pipes, that little air is a good insulator, actually. It helps insulate it and cuts down on the chance of burning you or a fire or something like that, and allows you to attach onto that without damaging the inner pipe where the products of combustion are flowing out and are quite hot, okay? We also have a BW vent. That's for wall furnaces. Wall furnaces are like furnaces that are just built right into the wall, and then you have this not a round but an oblong type of vent that goes inside the wall and up out the roof. Okay, so that's a BW, is those oblong ones that would fit inside a wall and then go out. All right, for wall furnace. Okay, and then again with the BW vent shall not terminate not less than 12 feet in vertical height above the bottom of the wall furnace. So why that? The bottom of the wall furnace, you have a wall furnace here, and they tend to be natural draft. They tend not to have a combustion blower or anything like that, and you get some warmth in the room or the home or whatever, inexpensive wall furnace, but the flame is down low. Everything is down low, the flame and the burners. And then the products of combustion also rise up through the wall furnace, and then they go up that oblong pipe outside. So the longer and skinnier a pipe, the better draft you get, the better the products of combustion flow up. So in order to establish that draft, it has to be a certain amount. You can't just vent it right above the ceiling or something like that. It has to be a good length of pipe, okay? All right. Now, gas vents need to have a termination cap on them so that it's not just an open pipe above your roof where rain can come down in. You have to have a cap, and then the products can go out through this all the way around through the sides, okay? So these metal vents have to have a cap on them by code, all right? And then again with vent offsets, let me just give you a concept here. With any metal vent or chimney pipe, we want it to go straight up and the shortest path up, straight out side, okay? Now you can have some angles and you can have bits of horizontal, but generally you have to always just be going straight up. You can kick it over a little bit and then go up. That's okay in general, but generally the path needs to be vertical and needs to be as short distance as possible to reasonably get it outside, okay? Just take that to the bank. Now, all right. Here we have mechanical draft venting system. It says a mechanical draft venting system or other than direct vent shall terminate not less than 4 feet below, 4 feet horizontally from, or 1 foot from a door, openable window, or gravity air inlet of a building. So what we're saying is basically the vent or any chimney pipe, any vent pipe or anything like that can't be near where we can get air into the building. You can't have it near any kind of window, or you can't have it near a door, or maybe have a big fresh air intake on your roof that's sucking for the air conditioning. There's also other rules that show that you can't, like, well, I have my, there's like brownstones, there's buildings like adjoined like this almost, and then you're just, well, it's not on my roof, and you just, venting your crap, your exhaust fan, whatever, to a neighbor or something like that. You can't do that. So near anything that can take the products of combustion need to be dumped outside and not near where it can get mixed in with the air that you breathe, okay? Okay. It says here, height of connector. When you happen to have 2 or more vent connectors enter a common vent, chimney, or flue, a single wall metal pipe, the smaller connector shall enter at the highest level. So if we have this here, and we had another vent pipe that was going up, and this one's bigger, this would have to get into it at a higher level, okay? And the bigger one lower, so that it has a shorter distance to go out, so we're not going to tend to have the products of combustion come back down another pipe. All right. And then you can't upsize a vent more than 2 sizes at one shot, because that sudden expansion, if you go from like a 3-inch vent pipe to a 6-inch vent pipe, you have such a big pressure drop that the gases will tend to condense that water vapor and not move up the chimney pipe, okay? So you can't do some kind of big drastic upsizing, not more than 2 sizes above, okay? All right. All right. And then the maximum length, horizontal length for different connector sizes. So we have small little ones. The smallest one is essentially 3 inches vent pipe. The furthest horizontal distance you can run one of those is 4.5 feet. A 4-inch pipe would be 6 feet this way. A 6-inch pipe, 9 feet that way. So you are able to go over this way a little short distance, but not much, okay? To find your way easiest up out the top of the building, all right? And that concludes my lecture on chimneys and vents.